What a pleasure it is to have Pastor Ray Rompre
Yes.
on the set. I'm so looking forward to hearing your story and letting you tell everybody what God has done in your life. And so it's a pleasure to have you. But the first thought I had was, what is your ethnicity of your last name? Because I've never heard it ever once in my life. And so tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Pastor Rob. I'm blessed to be here. A lot of times people wonder where my name comes from. And the truth is, I try my best to be able to share with others where I inherited my last name. So my name is Ron Prey. I'm of Mexican descent. And, people think I'm Filipino. People see my hair, they think I'm Samoan. I feel like the Apostle Paul when he said, I become all things to all men so that I might win some. But my father's mother is German. And so I have German in me as well. But he never knew his father. And so my grandmother, from the stories that I was told, named my father after a man, Rompre, who was not his father. And so when my grandmother gave birth to this little red baby, that guy who, was with my grandma at the time said, that's not my son. And you're talking about 1950s, where, here's a woman who escaped from Germany, Berlin, to come to the United States and start a new life. And she gets pregnant and she has a little red baby. So my father grew up with the Rompre name that he never knew because he never knew his father or any of his father's ethnicity or family. And so naturally, I inherited an unknown name. So my father struggled a lot in his youth because he didn't know who he was. And so all his life, he tried to find out who he was. And I actually inherited the same struggle. I too struggled with identity. Well, who was I? Because I grew up in a Mexican home. All my friends' last names were Perez and Rodriguez and all these cool names, but I didn't have a cool Latino last name.
Wow. So you're growing up because of, we could possibly say the sin of your grandmother, hiding, taking it to the grave, never revealing the truth.
She never
it
did.
created an identity crisis in the Rompre genealogy
Yes.
because you don't associate with it. And you're saying how the Latino, all the Mexican fighters and all the warriors, they take pride in their last name.
Very much.
And so for you, growing up, the hardest thing to do is find pride because you're missing half of your genealogy. So you have literally no understanding of that side of the family. How did that make you feel growing up? What was the effects? Because we understand that when we don't know purpose and identity, we don't connect to family, the enemy has a way of turning things to destiny swap and make you go down the wrong track.
You're absolutely right. For a long time, I struggled with feeling insignificant. I struggled with my own purpose, my own identity, wondering who I was. Who am I? All my friends can point to their grandfathers and their great grandfathers, and they would make up stories that they rode on horses with Pancho Villa in the Revolution, and they stood with Emiliano Zapata and all these things. But here I was, I always felt empty. I always felt like I didn't fully belong because I had a misunderstanding of who I was. And so at an early age, I started to tell others that my name was my mother's last name, which is Zamora, and my grandmother's last name, which was Zavala. So I created like this false identity to try to fit in. And that led me to want to find pride in something. And so it really took me to a place where I found purpose and belonging in the street life. And that's why, joining gangs and looking for other things to make me feel validation for who I was.
How old were you when you started searching for this validation and then you started finding things that were pulling you in a wrong way?
I was about 12 years old when I started to question like who I was, and I started to notice that my last name singled me out and made me different. Growing up in a school and growing up in a place where everyone again had these proud Latino last names, I didn't have any. And so for a long time, I wanted to change my name to my mother's name because I wanted to just release this Rompre, what I thought was a curse, because my father inherited it. And then I inherited it, and I eventually passed it on to my sons, who are now Rompres as well. And so I used to tell people that my other name, I tried to create my other name, and I never end up changing it or anything, but that's what it was.
So it just created a mental struggle because it was generationally passed down. Your father struggled in identity, purpose, lack of belonging. Though he had a last name, he felt like an orphan. Abandonment, rejection. And so all of those things, man, they create voids in the heart of not just young men, but in humanity.
Right.
And so you're living with a void. What are some of the voids that you had? Was it bitterness and anger? Was it, hatred and strife? Was it violence? What was the thing that filled that void? What did you begin to replace it with?
Well, number one, I felt abandonment. I've always struggled with feeling like I wasn't wanted. And so at a young age, when I was about 6 years old, my mother and father went to prison. And so I grew up in San Francisco Mission District. I was born in 82. And by that time, my mom and dad were in the mission selling PCP. And so that's the elephant tranquilizer the streets call angel dust. And that's because, you get so high, you think you can fly. So not only were they selling angel dust, but they were smoking angel dust.
Wow.
And so I grew up watching my parents turn into zombies. Like literally, they would get stuck. They couldn't talk. They couldn't move. And at a young age, I would find joints around the house and I would flush them. My father would come for me and spank me because I was throwing away his supply. I didn't know it then at 6 years old, but I just knew every time they did that, it was not good. And so when my parents went to prison, I felt helpless because I remember the day the police kicked in the door, came, arrested my mom, arrested my dad, and I felt like I just had to stand there and take it. I was helpless. I couldn't do anything. That led to me being raised by the other grandmother of my family. So for 6 years of my life, I never met my father's mother, the German woman named Karen. Because my father had a broken relationship. His mother wasn't very kind to him. She hurt him, abandoned him. She really felt the shame of him being around, that she pushed him away all throughout his life. So when he had children, he didn't bring us around her. One day, I went to my grandmother's house. And so I was raised from 6 to about 12 years old by my father's mother. So I felt anger, I felt abandonment, I felt shame, a lot of shame of, number one, I wasn't with my mom and dad. Here I have a Caucasian woman who doesn't look like me, doesn't look like my mom, my grandmother on my other side, or anyone, dropping me off for school, picking me up, all those things. And as a child, I didn't really understand what that meant. I just remember the teasing. Like, oh, who's that lady? Oh, why is that lady old? Like, that ain't your mama. Back, in the 80s, you talk about somebody's mama, it was on like Donkey Kong, right? So I found myself fighting a lot because, other kids would pick at me or try to make fun of me for my grandmother. I do love my grandma. I thank God that she was willing to take me, my brother, my sister, and my cousin, all 4 of us, into her foster care for that time. But yeah, I dealt with that, and it led me down a different path than I thought for my own life.
So you're about 6 years old, and you're jumping into a relationship with a woman you've never seen.
Complete stranger.
Never met.
Complete stranger.
I mean, I can't imagine the discomfort, not only for you, but your cousins and siblings, that strange environment. Food, probably food, different.
Way different.
Community, the way they raise and talk and speak. So it probably just created, you were in a house, but probably with walls, Would you
sure.
say that?
For
with,
sure.
With separation and learning how to communicate. How did it affect you in school? So I know you said when they talked about your mom, you're ready to fight, but did it affect your schoolwork, your desire to go to school? I'm sure it affected everything at the age of 6, 7.
Yeah.
Better watch what I'm saying now.
There you go. I know, right? Yeah.
So at that age, that tender age,
Yeah.
could you feel your personality changing?
For sure, for sure. That day something died inside of me and something was reborn. And instantly I felt rebellion take over my life. Instantly anger began to grip me. And that fear that I felt as a child, being ripped away from my mom, ripped away from my dad, that fear turned into anger. And I vowed to never be afraid again. And so all my life, I've always fought fear in my life because I never wanted to feel helpless like I felt. I never wanted to feel that I didn't belong to something. And, my grandmother tried the best she could, to try to give us a home and love us, but she didn't know Jesus. So my grandmother not only took us in, but was 100% atheist. I mean, there was no God. She did not believe in God. I didn't hear about the name Jesus till I was almost 13 years old when I went to juvenile hall. So we never went to church. We never prayed. There was no anything. She was really mentally caught up in her old German ways. And so for the first beginning of my life, all I heard from her was that the white man is more superior than the brown man. And it's sad to say, and I don't say it in any way to shame her or make her look like she wasn't a great woman, but she didn't know Christ and she didn't have the love of God. So all the things mentally that she did to my father that ran him out of the house at 16 years old, she just continued the same cycle with us. I remember we would go to my neighborhood where I'm from in the Mission, and we would drive by and we would see people on the streets, and she would say, look out the window. She goes, those are your people, dirty people. And so for a long time, she tried to make me feel shame of being brown. Being Mexican was like, she would tell us, hey, I want you to wipe off all the dirt, from your skin when you get in the bath. And again, at a young age, to be made, to feel insecure about my own ethnicity, my race, my skin color, it was mentally challenging at a young age because I never dealt with that. And so again, that just fueled more fire in me to say, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong.
The crazy thing is she never dealt with her own mystery.
She didn't.
She didn't. So she made you feel ashamed because of her hidden secret. Her daughter, your mother, who's in prison, she don't even address the circumstance of why is her daughter in prison? Why is her daughter or her son?
My father.
Yes. Why is her son in prison? What happened? There is no attachment. So this detached association that you're living under, that you're placed under, it must really begin to separate you not only from God, but from people. But did it create a disdain towards the white man? Because she's telling you you're not enough.
Right.
And you need to be this.
Right.
But, when people tell us what we need to be, we often revolt in the other way.
Right.
And so tell me a little bit about the journey. You mentioned that you, at 13, heard Jesus because you were in juvenile.
Yep.
So how did we get there?
Yep. So with my grandmother, I mean, I was very rebellious. My school, I was not good in school at all because in school I was already labeled the problem kid, the foster kid. Teachers and principals would read my record versus, treat me for who I am. And so I've always had special attention for being like that kid whose parents were in prison. Like, even though there was other kids who had some of the same background, I don't recall anyone else's parents being in prison, so mom and dad. So I always felt like that brought me unwanted attention. And so because I was unhappy at home, I took out all my anger at school. And so I became a fighter at a young age. I became very rebellious. And my mentality was, you can't tell me anything. You know why? Because you're not my mom. You're not my dad. And that stuck with me all throughout school. My grandmother used to collect my pink slips for problems. Like every time I'd mess up in class, every fight I got in, every time I'd cut school, every time I'd do something, I would get a pink slip referral. She kept them in a folder like badges of honor. And she would say, look at how many you got this month. And at the time, I didn't think about it, but I always was like, she was never involved in my school. She never came to, I never had the support of education and coming to school. I remember my 5th grade graduation. Nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. All my friends, moms were there, balloons, cake. But when I look back, I see God, because every step of the way, God has always provided someone for me to give me love and encouragement. I had a best friend by the name of Eric, and his mom just loved me like her own. So in 5th grade, for that graduation, I had no clothes. I came to his house with a pair of sweats and a t-shirt. And she put me in a white button up. I'll never forget it. You know, it was one of those moments in my life that just, I look back and it was a God moment. And I see where the Lord was. She goes, I put on a black pair of jeans from my friend. We're the same size. We're in 5th grade. A white shirt, a little tie. And she went and they made me a cake after with her son. And so even though my grandmother wasn't there, and again, you know, mind you, she probably was at work. She was a working lady. She worked, she paid the bills. And in no way am I trying to like shame her, because she did what she could. But God always provided. God always brought someone to care for us and love us.
A sense of pride. Just the way you're describing, putting on that white button.
Yep.
Probably put a smile on your face.
Big time.
You felt love of a mother for the first time.
For the first time.
In years.
A long time.
In years.
Long time.
Then the celebration with the cake. It's probably a marker moment in your life. It left a mark, and it stays with you, even when you talk about your best friend.
Yep.
It, you know, at 5th grade, it still brings a smile to your face.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, was that a short-lived moment? You know, and then everything kind of just reverted back. But I guess on your journey, there was always 5th grade you could look to.
Yeah, oh, for sure. You know, what happened was my family started to find us in San Francisco. And so my grandmother, when I went into her care, we were 100% separated from our family. And so I just started a book that I've been writing, and I've been trying to get. So all these thoughts have been coming up to me, my childhood. And I remember that I would know places in the neighborhood where I would go. And because I went to school in my neighborhood, I would see my sister. My sister ran away when she was about maybe 10 years old. She went back to my grandma's home because she knew how to get there. And then when my sister found me, and then I seen my uncle, he got out of prison, he came to visit me, and all my family started to find where we were. So we started coming. My grandma said, it's time to move. So she picked up and we moved to a far off land. And I had no contact with my mom, with my dad, with my tias, my tios, my cousins. We got a huge family. And so it was just me, my brother, and my cousins separated from everyone. And so one day, as I got a little bit older, my uncle Jojo, who's my grandmother's son, ran into my mom and down on Mission Street. And so my mom gets out of prison. Fast forward, you know, she does maybe 3-4 years. She gets out of prison. She's looking for her boys. She doesn't know where we are. My father's still in prison. My uncle happens to just bump into her, and she says, where are my boys? My uncle says, I'll show you where they are. And so my uncle reunited us with our mother. And mind you, being that young, man, I used to dream of my mom. I used to just close my eyes and she would be right there. Her voice, her smell, her smile. And then I would wake up and I would just want to just be like, man, it's just a dream. But I've always envisioned reuniting with my mom. So the day finally came where my uncle brought my mom, and she came by, and it was just, peaches and herbs, reunited, and it feels so good. And so my grandmother was very angry. She was livid because she always said, when your mom comes, she's gonna come with a sucker and you're gonna go running. So she was always trying to build these walls between, like, your mom's a drug addict, your grandma's an alcoholic, your uncle's a no good gangbanger. Like, those were the images that she put in us to make us want to stay away from our family. And my uncle brought us together. I connected with my mom, and I remember the day I had got sick. It was about December, and I was probably in 5th grade. And I had been sick, and I didn't want to be home. I always went to school. Even though I had a half day of school because I was a troubled kid, I went to school because I didn't want to be home. And if my grandma was home, it was just like every time her feet hit the ground, it was like, great, like what's going to come today, right? She wasn't physically abusive, but it was more just verbal and mental, and I just wanted to get away. So every day I would go to school because that's where my friends were, that's where my social life was, and I was outside. So on the weekends, 10 a.m., I do my chores, and I'm like, all right, I'm going outside. And we stay outside all day on adventures, just wherever the road took us. And so one day, that week I was sick. I had a flu, but I felt better. And our school was doing a Christmas party, last day before the break. And so I said, man, I feel good. I want to go. I want to say bye to my friends, whatever. So my grandma said, no. She said, you're staying home. You're not feeling good. I'm like, but I feel great. I'm doing better. And she said, no, you're going to stay here with me. So I said, all right. And so when I woke up, I just snuck out and I went to school. And she showed up at that principal's office. And she said, you want to sneak out? She says, call your mom. Let's see if she'll take you. As a bluff, as like, she don't want you. They're never going to want you. And so I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm ready to come home. She said, come home. And that was it. And I packed my bags that day. My grandma dropped me off in the Sunnydale Projects where my mom was living at the time. And the rest was history. And then, my story kind of continued there because now I'm back with my mom, but I'm reunited with my family. I mean, I am just like on cloud 9. All my cousins, all my aunties, my grandma, my uncles, and all these visions of my life before started coming to life. And so, that kind of led me into, other paths in life. I know that my grandmother was at some place and some point trying to protect us from kind of following into that cycle of gangs and streets and violence because all my family was kind of clicked up. All my uncles, had been to prison and we were all, that way. And so coming back home, and reuniting with my family, I kind of just stepped right back into the family business, so to say.
So when you separated from your grandma, did you and grandma ever have a time of being reunited? Did you ever go back, or it was just cut and dry and I'm out?
That was it.
Never spent no more time?
Every single day of those years that I was there, I was waiting to go home. And so when I found that place, she thought that I would come running back, and I didn't. I did come visit because my brother stayed, and I came to visit my brother, and she was just like, well, you sure you don't want to come back? And I go, I'm back with my family, even if we were struggling. And we struggled, even if we were on welfare, even if, there was, still just that family struggle that they had, drinking and partying and drugs. I get it, but that's my family, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. And so I never went back.
Yeah, so it was a place of identity.
Mm-hmm.
Though it was negative,
Mm-hmm.
It was still better than the verbal abuse and the condemnation that was being slung at you by a woman who's obviously broken, your grandmother.
She was.
And, I know you don't hold it against her, and though your brother didn't leave, did obviously because you're visiting him, it didn't create a rift. But did it create a separation?
A big separation. I never got to say goodbye. And I never knew the story until years later when he wrote me and I was in prison already. And he said that day he came home and he says, where's my brother Ray? And Grandma said he went to go live with his mom. And that was that, and that was that. But, like you said, me being home and I found my place, I found my identity. One thing I did find with my family was love. It was love. It was love. Yeah. It was support. It was hugs. It was kisses. My grandmother was hands off. No hugs, no kisses, no I love yous. But my mom, on the other hand, is total opposite. hugs and kisses, mijo this, mijo that. Even today, to this day, we joke. My mom treats me like I'm the little boy still. Mijo, are you hungry, mijo? She came to my birthday party one year, and I had left to go do something, and it was a joke around the house that she was like, anyone see my baby? My baby. And everyone's thinking, where's the baby? And it's me. And it's me. I'm the big baby. But that's one thing that was missing in my life was the physical touch, the love, the care. Because again, in my early years of development, that's what I received. Despite their struggle and despite what they did, my mother and father were very affectionate, loving. They cared for us. We ate. We weren't neglected in some of those areas. And so going to my grandma's home and not receiving that always made me feel like I'm missing something. So going back home with my family, I felt that love, that support, and it just made me want to fully embrace the lifestyle that they were living. And they weren't bad people. We were just familia doing what we had to do to survive. And so however we had to do it, but more or less, I wanted to be able to be a part of protecting them. I wanted to be a part of the family that would do whatever I had to do to protect them and be with them and grow with them. So,
what a journey! Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about from 6 to 12 years old, 13 now.
Yeah.
And what was the tide that turned it that you ended up in juvenile hall?
So coming back to the mission, there's gangs on every corner. I mean, this is early 1990s when the mission district was just every corner had a gang. And so with my uncles, my uncle Danny Boy, he was a cholo. He was young. He was in his early 30s. He's the one that taught me how to dress and crease up my clothes. And he taught me how to shake hands. So I never had a father. And so I was missing the male role modelship, the father in my life to teach me how to be brave and strong. My anger taught me how to fight, but I never knew how to control what I had. I was just a loose cannon. So not having a father, I didn't have this male strength within me from a father figure. Not having a mother, I didn't have nurture. I didn't have the nurturing hand that I needed. So a lot of me was so underdeveloped that I was ready to be formed. I was just like a piece of clay, just saying, show me what I have to do, and I'm going to do it. And so when I came back, my uncle kind of put me under his wing as a father figure in my life and made sure I understood where I was living. Mind you, I was there before I left. So it wasn't new to me. It just, I had to refamiliarize myself now, not from being a boy, but being a young teenage boy. And so the streets were dangerous. If you walked down the wrong neighborhood, you would get beat, robbed, stripped, stabbed, only because you're in the wrong area. Now, I didn't have to join a gang, but not having a gang or a backup left me a victim. And I didn't want to be a victim because I had been a victim all the years of my childhood. So my uncle taught me how to watch my back, how to know my surroundings, how to, be able to escape danger if I seen danger present, and really how to carry myself as a young man. I wasn't 6 years old anymore. I was already 12, turning 13, where I needed to learn how to adapt to my surroundings because he didn't want me to get taken advantage of. He didn't want to see me hurt because I walked down the wrong street. And so he started to lace me up. He started to show me the ropes, and I followed, and I survived. But with those things, underdeveloped, I made bad decisions. And some of those bad decisions sent me to juvenile hall. And so at 13 years old, I found myself in YGC, in juvenile hall, and sitting in a little jail cell, kind of just figuring out what's going to be my next step.
Wow. So here we are in juvenile hall.
Mm-hmm.
Recalling earlier, you said you've never heard the name Jesus until the first time you're in jail.
Yep.
So, I grew up with a father and mother who loved juvenile hall. My dad was a minister. He'd play music, but he would go and teach the word at juvenile hall. he would have a singing group of about 15 people, and they would just go have a big giant Bible study, and he would pray for people. I remember my father at times, he would tell people, if you ever need help, when you're out, look us. We would have people show up Christmas. We'd have people show up Thanksgiving. They have nothing. And I remember my dad, this one guy specifically, his name was David. He lived with us. We were like his transition home for probably 3 to 6 months. And he had no socks, no underwear. He came with a pair of jeans, pair of underwear, socks. My dad asked him, "What do you have?" And he said, "Nothing. But you told me that if I needed help to look you up."
Right.
And my dad said, "All right." Moved him in with me and my 2 other brothers. And Dave stayed there for a period of time. And I remember him just being so grateful. You could tell he felt out of place, but he was so grateful. He would always help clean the kitchen. He would always mop the floors, sweep the floors. He always wanted to just do a chore because in his mind, I think he was feeling like I got to earn this.
Right.
But my father was a man of love, and my dad's just like, just do what my sons do.
That's right.
And so, yeah, man, that guy lived with us. But,
That's awesome.
my dad had a passion for men's and women state facilities.
Yep.
So the prisons, the juvenile hall was his baby. And I'm telling you, he would minister at the rest home. So my father had this compassionate heart. And so it sounds like in juvenile, you found someone that had a heart of compassion and began to speak this love. So who is that person that started talking Christ?
Well, my roommate at the time said, if you want to go to church, we can get out of our cell. So that's what took me to church. I didn't go to church because I thought, hey, I'm in juvenile, I need Jesus. I was in juvenile hall, can't wait to get out because I was missing the street life. I wanted to know who was on the block, who's making money. The neighborhood was alive and it was active and it was like a 24-hour party. It was dangerous. It was adrenaline. And so I started to become addicted to the streets. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be part of the action because my gang, my street, my neighborhood, my family. See, a lot of people go, why would you die for a color? Why would you die for red? Why would you die for blue? So this was my family. These were my uncles, my aunties, my cousins, my family. So it wasn't like gang per se. This was my family. And so he said, we're in our cells all day. We can't wait to get out the cell. He said, we can get out of our cell if we go to church. And if you go to church, we're going to see some girls there because it was co-ed. And so I said, well, let's go to church. And I wasn't looking for Jesus. And of course I went, just to goof around. But I heard for the first time that there was a man named Jesus who loved me and knew everything about me. And of course it sparked and intrigued me. But because I was so underdeveloped and my mind wasn't ready, I just went back to the juvenile hall, got released from juvenile hall, and continued the street life. I continued to grow in the ranks of the streets. And I got bigger and I got stronger and I got smarter. And so my crimes started getting progressing. They started getting heavier. I started doing more crimes. I started fighting. But again, I found my place, I thought. I found my identity. This is who I am. This is what I'm willing to fight for. And actually, I'm willing to die for because now I'm reunited with my family. And that's all I've ever wanted, Rob. As a young boy, I just wanted to be back home.
And so would you say the greatest acceptance was doing bigger things? The bigger the crime or issue,
the bigger the reward,
the greater the name became.
Yep. Oh, big time.
And so
big time.
You said it earlier, a guy that liked the adrenaline of the streets. So you started escalating.
Yep.
What are some of the crazy things that you did and you look back now and go, what was I thinking? Because you're not the same man. God's radically changed and transformed your life.
Right.
We said it earlier, you're a pastor now, and you're helping people that have lived a life of torment and trouble, and you're setting them free. But what are some of the crazy things that you look back and say, man, God kept me? Because I think so many people don't realize, even in a worldly sense, when you don't know God, he still knows you, still loves you, and he still delivers you, because ultimately he sent you from heaven to earth with a blueprint, a design, and a purpose. Though you ain't found it, it's going to unfold. And so he's keeping the investment alive even when you're doing crazy stuff.
Right. And you know, as I grew into a young man in the neighborhood, you know, of course, I wanted to reach that pinnacle of respect. I wanted to be respected. I felt empowered. I felt that really there was nothing I couldn't do. And so every day was something. I mean, you know, I'm talking about, we've survived gang melees. I'm talking about, you could find 100 people on the streets fighting with bats and knives, drive-by shootings. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But I do look back and I remember the times where God saved me. So my grandmother was living in the rival neighborhood of where I'm from. So in order for me to go home to my grandma's house, I had to go through a rival gang neighborhood, which was dangerous, very dangerous. And so I would always think of ways to try to get around. And this is when you got 30, 40 people on the corner. Like, there's no getting around it, you know? And so one night, as a young teenager, I'm wearing a all red shirt, and I'm going to a place where there's all blue, and I'm on the back of the 14 mission. And the Muni bus is lit up like a Christmas tree. It's like LED lights, so ain't no hiding. And if you hid, you know, you were considered a coward. So I would sit right in the back of the bus, right in a place where everyone can see you, because my pride made me foolish. But I was thinking, I gotta prove myself, and I gotta go home. There's no way around it. And so I get to a corner where my stop is, and the gang chases the bus. Back then, we would pull the cables off of the bus, jump on the bus, and stomp somebody out. Either you were stomping or you were getting stomped out. So that night, I should have been stomped out. I mean, I was at the wrong place, wrong time, but God's grace went before me. And so I'll never forget that I was preparing myself to have to get jumped, stabbed, shot, like, you know.
The unexpected.
The unexpected. And I'm walking, and this group, I mean, you know, more than I can number, are running towards me because I was the lamb chop that night. Like, it was like piranhas on a piece of meat. Like, I was about to get tore up, because I've been on the other side of that, where it was 10 of us jumping on one guy. And so right when we were about to make contact, a light went off. Boom. You know, it reminds me of when I later read about how the light blinded the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus. I mean, a bright light just made us all freeze, and over a loudspeaker said, "Move it along." It was the police. The police shined the light. They saw what was happening. And for that split second, I was able to get away. I ran out of there as fast as I could, and I made it home that night. I think back to that night. That night could have changed my life forever. I could have been dead, paralyzed, shot, stabbed. I mean, I would have been 14 years old back then, who never would have experienced what I experienced today. So, I mean, I can go story for story for story, but I'll just say that, you know, some of the things that I've survived have helped me to be appreciative of what Jesus has done in my life. And like your father, I have a heart for juvenile hall. I go back into the juvenile hall in Alameda County, and I speak to young men that are lost, that are looking for love, looking for acceptance the same way. And so as my juvenile hall career continued, I just go inside, do push-ups, get strong, come out, fight, gang bang, go back inside. And then eventually I got sent to the East Coast when I was 15. And so I'm finding myself in Pennsylvania, Concordville, Pennsylvania, a ward of the state. The San Francisco Juvenile Hall court put me on a plane and sent me across the nation.
Wow.
Mind you, I've never left San Francisco before.
Culture shock.
Oh, with 1,000 youth from all over the country. So I met youth from Montana, Florida, Texas, everywhere, at a program called Glen Mills Schools. They actually shut it down because the counselors were abusing the youth, beating them up, knocking them out. But that was a whole 2 years I did there. 2 years on the other side of the map, separated from family, from friends. It was something.
So you were talking about you're going in and out, in and out.
Uh-huh.
How many different times did you go to juvenile hall?
Oh man, at least 10 times. I mean, at least in and out. You know, you come home on probation and then you skip school and then I catch a violation. I mean, I got caught with a gun and selling crack and assaults and robberies. I mean, eventually they say, all right, we got to do something with them. So they had a YA alternative at the time. Instead of sending me to the youth authority, they sent me to Pennsylvania, which was like a boarding school for youth. And there, I spent 2 years there. I got a GED, went to school. I took a car class where I learned to like do brakes and stuff like that. And I was going to church there. I was going to church because in that place only because we were all separated by states. So they had a rule that 3 people from California can't be having the same conversation with the same people. They call it subgrouping, because they thought maybe we're going to start a riot or we're going to try to escape. So they would try to separate people from the same state and same area as best as they can, except for the church. So again, the church was always the safe place where we can talk and be with each other. And I didn't know it then, but God was already calling me and the Spirit was drawing me to him, because all throughout my incarceration, the church was the place where we would meet, but God was meeting. I thought I was meeting with the homeboys, but it was Jesus meeting with me.
Wow. Mm-hmm. As you're there, it's a 2-year stint. Mm-hmm. You're finding a little bit of purpose, because you said you learned how to fix cars, and I've been to your house, I've seen your cars, and they're beautiful, detailed, all the way down to the color patterns and on the wheels and everything else, how it's very synchronized. So I think you found a passion for cars.
Yep.
And, I guess also there, I recognize your house, you guys have a rule that when you get there, everyone takes off your shoes, and you're trying to give me these things to put over my shoes. I keep your shoes on. I'm like, heck no, man. I'm used to kicking my shoes off too. So we kicked it off, and we reclined. But I recognize that your house was very in order. And was that things that you learned while you're in this system?
On the inside. So one of the things I've learned, like, mind you, I learned to shave in juvenile hall. I never had a father teach me how to shave. Like, I didn't grow facial hair until I was locked up in juvie. That's how young I was. So I learned how to shave. I learned how to shower in juvenile hall. As funny as it sounds, like, the counselors taught us how to groom ourselves. Like, again, nobody teaches you those things. And if they do, maybe it's a father teaching a young man how to clean behind his ears, how to wipe his face to his neck and down. Like, we were doing it backwards. Wash your stinky feet and then your face. And the counselors used to be like, that ain't right. Come top down. So I learned a lot of lessons, how to use a razor blade, all that incarcerated as a youth.
Yeah. And if you think about it, at 6 years old, that's when mom is still helping, when you're 4.
Exactly.
She's bathing you, but she has a pattern and you just learn the pattern.
Right.
Subconsciously you just learn. But if you don't have that, and you're expected to do it yourself, I remember my cousin, we used to go over and his mom would say, okay, go take a shower. And he didn't want to shower, so he'd stick his head under the water, wash his hair, but not wash his body. And his mom would come back and be like, all right, lift up your arms. And she's like, you didn't shower. You washed your head. Get in there. Or I'm going to do it. So, it was that, rebellious age, but he literally, it wasn't because he didn't know how, but it was I'm lazy and I don't want to. And man, I would just remember those things. We look back, and it's critical to have a father and a mother. It's critical to have somebody pouring love, teaching you the simplistic things that you felt like, God, I never learned. And so it's easy to see how a system could corrupt and destroy, but the scripture teaches us, have 10,000 instructors, but not many fathers. We need fathers.
Yes, we do.
So we could see a transformation take place in the lives of a generation. And so here you are, you're coming out of your juvenile stint. They're sending you to the East Coast. You learned a few things. And then did they ship you back, or did you just stay?
Back on the block, right back home, right back to the mission, right back to the gang. But now I'm stronger. I'm lifting weights, I'm pumping iron, so I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm smarter, and I jump right back into the gang life. And I'm still coming up. Now I'm more violent. Now I'm a leader because I just did time. There's a respect factor coming out. And so I got little homies looking up to me and older homies showing me respect. But before I lose thought, I wanted to talk about, you said like how, the way my home is and what I have today. In juvenile hall, you get a book, a sweater, and a letter. And that's it. And so I learned how to sweep and mop in juvenile hall. Every morning when you wake up, they would put a broom and a mop in your cell, and that was the morning routine, sweep and mop. So I learned hygiene and cleanliness incarcerated. And so because it was mine, I had to take pride in it. It's all I had. So I took care of it. My pants, I took care of them. My shirt, my little juvenile sweater, I took care of it. So if you notice, like my shoes are always clean. Yeah. Because I only had one pair of slippers. My jeans, my clothes, a lot of times people will compliment the way I dress. I go, I dress like this because I care for my stuff. Because I remember the time where I had nothing or I had to wear the same thing over and over again. So even in my home, in my cell, I wouldn't let a cellie come in and wear his shoes that he was outside on the yard with, people spitting, dirt, dust into my nicely mopped room. So it's like, kick your shoes off, throw your slippers on, because I don't want that dirt inside. So that just carried on with me and my hygiene. And really, it was just about my identity of taking care of myself, presenting myself. I teach my son, I've been blessed to be a father for almost 25 years. My oldest son is 25, have a 20-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son. And so the greatest accomplishment, Pastor, that I've ever accomplished has been raising my children. Because of Jesus, I broke the cycle. He broke the cycle for me of fatherless home. My father had no father. I had no father, but I said, with me, it's going to stop. And so that has been the greatest joy of my life, being a father, present, there, teaching, correcting, loving for all of my children. And so one of the things I teach my younger son, I teach all my children is you respect others by respecting yourself. So before you leave the house, brush your teeth, wash your face, comb your hair, have clean clothes, and smell good.
Come on.
That's because you respect others by presenting yourself outside of your home with respect. So I get out of Glen Mills. I'm big. I'm strong. I'm knocking dudes out. I'm fighting. I'm crazy. I'm partying. I'm drinking. I'm smoking, getting high. I'm selling dope. I got guns. I mean, I'm just full-fledged in the streets doing what I do, right? And so because I left for 2 years, I wanted to make up for time. And then people reckon, hey, man, you've been gone, you back. So every day was a party. And so I lived like that. And eventually, I remember one night I'm in my little, I'm maybe 17 at the time. I'm not even 18, but I got a car. I'm making money. I'm driving. I'm grown. I could buy beer at the store in my hood because they respect me. And so the police pull up. They chase me a little bit. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have registration. I didn't know what tags were back then. I just drove. I just rode, And so they pulled me over. I'm on probation. I just got home. I wasn't home for not even 2 months back then. So cops come out and they try to manhandle me. And so I did what I do best. I start putting my hands back. And so here I am. I'm fighting 2 cops. Bing, 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 right on the hood. And because I'm strong and fast, I think they were a little caught off guard. Like, man, this dude is hitting hard. And so I actually, got a chance to get away. And so they were down and I was up and I just started trying to run and find a place. But eventually they surrounded the whole block and it was like a movie. I ran up some stairs, nowhere to go. San Francisco, you got these old Victorians. I mean, there was nowhere to go. And so I was just like a caged, mouse or something, just like, and they just came in on me. And when I came down from them stairs, I just started swinging for the life of me because I just knew that if you were going to take me back, it was going to be a fight. And so they did what they did. I did what I did. And I found myself back in juvenile hall. But this time I have assault on police officer charges. I have some other charges on me. And so when I get before the judge says, you ain't learning. I can see you got some problems. So now we're going to send you to the California Youth Authority. And at that time, I was just like, well, if this is my journey and this is what I've embraced, then I'm ready to go. And so being a knucklehead, man, I picked up the chair and threw it at the judge because I seen it in a movie one time. And I said, if I ever go to jail and have to do some hard time, I'm going to show the judge that I don't care. And so I picked up the chair and threw it at the judge, and I fought the bailiffs. Bing, bing. So at that age, I was fighting everything moving. My hands were my mouth, and I just fought and fought and fought, and I was getting good at fighting, and my respect started growing. So when I got to the California Youth Authority, that was all fighting. It was all, everyone there was in a gang. Everyone in there was big and strong. Everyone in there was ready to prove themselves. And so the first day in, I got in a big old fight and came out victorious. And so just from the gate, I just started going up and up and up and up, which eventually led me to the penitentiary. Because from the youth authority, I caught a 4-year sentence in YA. They took off my YA jacket, put on a CDC jacket. Now I found myself at 19 years old in Tracy State Penitentiary. So it changed for me even then, because we weren't, 25 and under. Now this was the prison. So
wow. So your whole life is now you are a big fish in a small pond in the youth facilities, and all of a sudden now you're a guppy in the midst of an ocean with men that are in there for life.
Yes.
Heinous crimes.
Yes.
Crazy stuff. So in the midst of all of this, how old were you when your story begins to flip? Does it take place when you get incarcerated? No. So I mean, walk me a little further.
So
then.
now I'm in prison. At a young age, it's sad, but because that was my life, and I was around everyone who had been to prison, I have looked up to the man coming out of prison because he proved himself. He was, he had pride in himself, the way he dressed, the way he carried himself. He was strong. He was fearless. Like at 13 years old, we wanted to be the big homies. We looked up. Those were our role models. We didn't have any role models. I didn't care about Michael Jordan. I didn't care about Scottie Pippen or none of them. They weren't in my neighborhood. These were the ballers with the Mercedes Benz and the gold chains and the rings and watches and tattoos. And so at a young age, that's what I wanted to be. I want to be like that because I seen the respect. I seen the love. I seen we call it carnalismo. I seen, they can go anywhere and everyone would respect them and love them. So now I'm here, and I had to go through that journey of the prison system. And I went from one prison, riot, another prison, riot, another prison, riot. So I just started making my way up the ladder in the prison system. And eventually I was 21 years old in Pelican Bay SHU, doing 23-1. So now I'm.
So wait, I don't know what 23 is one.
So I'm in my cell 23 hours a day. I'm out for 1 day. But now I find myself, this young 21-year-old man, in the most maximum security prison in California. And now you're talking about, now I'm to the top of the chain with people who are never coming home. Everyone in that prison was in prison longer than my life. They were in isolation for 10, 15, 20 years. We call it Skeleton Bay because that's the last stop in the prison system before you die. If you're not on death row, Pelican Bay is death row. You're isolated from sun, zero sun. Absolutely. So pale skin, no vitamin D. You're isolated from the world, from life. There's no phones. There's no contact. Pelican Bay was designed to break an inmate down. So you'll never touch another inmate unless you have a cellmate. So that for me was, I was just in shock where I was, but my uncle was there. So I have this OG uncle who been a part of the system for many years. And so my uncle who raised me, Danny Boy, he died while I was in Pelican Bay. So I got to call home and said, your uncle's dead. So my other uncle, Rascal, came and visited me in prison behind closed doors and said, and I hadn't seen him since I was 6 years old when I first left with my mom. Wow. So I reunited with my uncle in Pelican Bay. And I was always looking for my dad, wondering, will I bump into my dad in prison and meet him? So long story short, I'm in isolation. I stay down. I'm down for a long time. My longtime girlfriend, who's my wife today, you met my wife, Mila. She encouraged me. She loved me. She wrote me. She came 10 hours from San Francisco to visit me behind glass for 2 hours on the phone. No physical touch, just 2 hours on the phone. And her love and prayed for me. She prayed for me. My mom eventually went into a women's program and got saved and started to pray that her son would get saved. And so there's no churches in Pelican Bay. There's no any of that. I mean, you're absolutely slammed down. You don't go to chow. Chow comes to you. You're in your cell 23 hours a day. And that's where I learned introspection. That's where my healing started, because I was able to start looking within myself why I was where I was. And so with my wife on my side praying for me when I came home, and I paroled June 20th, 2004. And I stepped out of Pelican Bay. I went down to San Quentin. For the last 2 weeks, I had to be in the hole in San Quentin. And there's my uncle again on the tier. Same uncle. He already got out and came back. He'd been in prison 30 plus years, 40 years. So now he's back on the tier. All my homies are on the tier. Everyone I seen throughout these 5-6 years of prison, they're all there. And I said, I'm stepping out. And so I maxed out. They couldn't give me another day. And I always share this story that my last day in San Quentin, June 20th, I call out the bars, which is a no-no on the tier. You're not supposed to call out the tier. But I'm like, I'm going home today, so forget the rules. I said, CO. I said, I'm supposed to go home today. And everybody, the whole prison just erupted. That whole, you're never going home, you're never getting home. Finally, he comes, he dangles his key, opens that cell door. I step out, my parole officer picks me up. I go to San Francisco. The rest is history. But I say this, that one thing the CO did not do was give me the key. Because if he would have gave me the key that unlocked those prison doors, I would have went and unlocked all 5 tiers. No matter where they were from, what they did, because I know what it's like to be incarcerated and locked up. And so, but when I came to Jesus came into my cell. Because I was in prison outside of prison. Prison of my mind, my heart. Jesus didn't just unlock me, he gave me the key. And he said, now go unlock as many prison doors as you can. And for the last 17 years, that's what I've been doing.
Wow. So where did you have your Christ encounter?
You'd think I'd come home and be right. You would hope. You would hope right? After all this, I would be right. No. I went back to the streets, back to what I know. But now
you have people
I come
praying.
Home. Yeah, I got people praying.
But you still a fool.
But now I'm coming out of Pelican Bay. That's a high honor. Like that's when you come out of a place like that, everything is accessible for you. So that's what I did. I came home. I started getting involved back in the street life, doing it. And so for my first 3 to 4 years, I was just a knucklehead, dodging parole, running from cops, street beef, crazy everything. And I just wouldn't stop. I would not stop. But I'm having kids. I got married. I'm having children. And you would think my wife, my kids, I'm holding babies would stop me. But I was so tied to the street life and my loyalty and my,
your identity.
My identity was so tied into the street life that I didn't know how to change. I didn't know change. And I wanted to change. I didn't know how. And so long story short, I'm in the city of Hayward. My homie moves to Hayward, right where my hub is. And I said, see that apartment? I encounter Christ back there. We're celebrating. We're in the back drinking, smoking, doing our thing. My good friend Gilbert's father comes out, my spiritual dad, Gilbert Hernandez, and I offer him a beer. We're all drinking. I go, Pops. We all call him Pops. And he's from the neighborhood. OG, did time, shot in the head. He's been saved many years. I mean, ex-heroin addict. He was off the hook. Shouldn't have been alive, but the grace of God was on him. So I didn't know. I didn't know what a Christian was. I've never seen a Christian. I didn't do time with Christians in prison because that's not what we did. So I offer him a beer. I said, Pops, drink with us. We're celebrating. That's how we celebrate. And he said something that changed my life. He said, fool, I don't need that. I got Jesus. And it slapped me, Pastor. I'm talking about an invisible hand, just like, Charlie Murphy, what the hand say to the face, slap. And it just, no one's ever said that to me while I offered him a beer. And so for that moment, I was just stunned and was like, okay. After that, I was like, cool, I'll drink it myself. We just keep drinking and partying and doing our thing. My wife is in the living room. They're ministering to her. They know my wife. We're all from the mission. We're all family. And I come in and they have like an intervention. And I'm like, you guys are killing my high right now. So they sit me down. They say, Ray, you need Jesus. And I said, who? Jesus. I go, I don't need Jesus. I go, as long as I have this weed, this alcohol, and this gun, I'm good. And they said, I want to invite you to church tomorrow. And he said, my pop said, don't knock it till you try it. But I seen the hurt in my wife's eyes. I mean, my wife was done with me. I wasn't coming home. She's calling police stations, hospitals. She doesn't know if I'm alive. Like every day I left, I was living like that. She didn't know if I was coming home. And so she was hurting and hurting inside. And my love for her, seen the hurt, and I said, for her, I'll go to church. I wasn't looking for Jesus. I didn't go to church for me. I felt like even though the walls were coming down in my life, that was just the pressure I was used to. So I walk into the church. My wife's there, my family's there. And I wish I could say something happened, but it didn't because my heart wasn't right. I just couldn't wait to get out of there so I can go back to the streets and make money. The block was calling and party all night long. But my wife stayed faithful. And so for any wives who might be listening even today, stay faithful, keep pursuing. She would go to church when I wouldn't go to church, and she would stand at the altar and intercede for me. There was nights when I wouldn't even come home on Saturday night, but I'll show up for church while she was at the altar, and she would smell me, and I would smell like sin from all night long. But she just never stopped praying and pressing in, right? Thessalonians says, pray without ceasing, and that's what she did. And then one day I just had a divine encounter where I heard the gospel that Jesus can change you, that everything you've been through is because God has a purpose for you. And it just, I wanted something different. I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. That's why when Paul says the sin in me, oh, what a wretched man I am, the things I want to do, I don't do. I felt like that. Like, I don't want to do this, but this is what I'm programmed to do. And so one day I caught a case. I'm sitting in jail. I'm back in that cell. And I got 10 felonies stacked up against me.
Jeez.
And I go, this is it. For the first time in my life, Pastor, I felt like a loser. Every time I went to jail, I didn't feel like a loser. I just felt like it was the next level in my pursuit of the lifestyle. So I'm just graduating from junior high to high school to college to master's, and PhD, just higher. But this time was different. I have my wife, I have my babies at home, and I just go, they're going to throw the book at me, and I just gave everything up. And I just felt a remorse inside of me, just began to break me in places that I was hardened and calloused by my childhood and lack of father, all those things. And then God just spoke to me and said, choose this day who you will serve. Just like that, in a cell. And I just released and I said, God, I'm sorry. I've been playing the game, going to church and be back on the block. I said, today I accept you as my Lord and Savior. If you're real, and I'm sure many of us have that, if you're real, then save my life. And from that day forward, I end up bailing out. I'm on bail for a year. I'm fasting, praying, getting to church, reading my Bible. Like I'm in. I told all my homies on the streets, I'm out. I'm hot. I'm hot. Feds are watching me probably, So I go, don't call me, don't ask me for nothing. Like, I'm out on bail. I'm not coming out. And I just fully absorbed myself in Christ. God moved in the court. I ended up getting a county year. Spent a year, 4 months in the county, reading my Bible, changing my mind, renewing my mind. And I've been saved ever since.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So would you say that in that 4 months where you're renewing your mind,
Yeah.
of course, upon your salvation,
Yeah.
did you finally feel the acceptance, that place of my name has meaning?
Yep.
All the things you were searching for in the street life, did it came to a crashing end, and then all of a sudden you're like, if you're real.
Yeah.
come into my life.
Yep.
Was that the moment that you realized, I have a DNA,
Yep.
I have a father,
Yep.
I have a purpose, and from here, what's the journey look like?
For sure. When I started to read my Bible, and the Bible told me that he's a father to the fatherless, I found a father in Jesus. I found my identity as a son, where I didn't have to work for his love. He just loved me. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. He was willing to die for me, Pastor. And I said, man, I've been willing to die for the streets. And the streets don't love me. The streets don't want nothing. When I was in prison, I didn't get no letters and none of that stuff. It was my wife holding me down. So it's like, here I am ready to give my life for something that's not willing to give their life for me. But when I seen the dedication and commitment that Christ gave me, the Father giving his only begotten son to die for me, man, that did something inside of me that changed me forever.
Yeah.
It broke chains inside of me.
When we really look at the life that Christ lived, being first carrying his cross all the way down the Via Dolorosa, to Calvary's Hill, being placed before that on the post and being lashed 39 times, being beaten beyond recognition, beard plucked out, spit on, punched, bloody mess. You know, then he carries the cross. Then he's nailed to it. Then he's dropped in that 3-foot hole to hold that 12-foot pole upright.
Right.
Shakes his whole body. Can't imagine the pain. You know, I guess the way I would say is, this guy, if you look at it from the streets,
Oh, that's real.
that's a real homie, I
That's
guess you would say.
gangster. That's gangster. I mean, and that's what changed me. And that's what changed me. I just felt this transformation inside of me, that the old had passed away and something new was birthed inside of me. And I was filled with the Holy Spirit that day, Pastor, and my life has never been the same. And so I've been carrying that key that unlocks prison doors. Every person, I tell people, you don't have to go to prison to be in jail. A lot of people are in incarceration in their heart and their mind because of their past and all that. And you know what? Instantly, I forgave my father. Instantly, I forgave my mother. Instantly, I forgave my grandmother. Instantly, I was okay with everything that was, because I knew that that's why I went, so that I would know Christ and know what he did for me, and then be able to use everything for his glory and for his honor. So I know what it is for the incarcerated. Many people are incarcerated on these streets without Jesus. I know what it is to be the orphan. He adopted me. I was the son that had no father. He took me in. He adopted me, brought me into his kingdom. I was the downtrodden. I was the weary. I was the lost. I was the anger, the confused. So everything I was, he created new in me. So now I've spent the last 17 years preaching to the streets, going in prisons. I went back to my prison cell in Pelican Bay last year, and
Wow.
I preached a 3-day revival on every prison yard in Pelican Bay. I walked to the cell that I was incarcerated in. It's open now, because Pelican Bay is not what it used to be, but I used my testimony for his glory, and hundreds of men came to know Christ that day. I go to San Quentin every Monday night. I preach the gospel there. I've been there for 8 years doing prison ministry, reminding those men that Jesus can change someone like me, because look at what he's done in my life. So juvenile halls, street, people in the struggling with gangs, struggling with identity, purpose, all those things. Now I'm a soldier for him. I was a street soldier at one time, willing to die. Now I'm a soldier of the kingdom.
Come on.
Willing to live. I tell people, when I was in that life, I was just living to die. Every day could have been my last, but now I'm dying to live. Dying here, dying on the inside, dying to this flesh every day. And I'm living that abundant life that Christ promised. I can't even imagine back then, if you would have showed me my life today, traveling different places of the world, like going all over the country, preaching the gospel, sharing my story, come home to a beautiful wife, 4 children, beautiful home. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for nothing, Pastor.
Yeah,
Nothing.
Your home is a beautiful place.
Nothing.
I've been there, seen it, and thinking you grew up on welfare to the blessing of the Lord.
Sleeping on concrete in prison, no pillow. No pillow for 5 years.
Wow.
No pillow. So believe me, I mean, but that is the power of Christ. Jesus can transform. It's like, and I'm no one special. You know, it's not me. It's him in me, you
Yeah.
know, and that's why I became a pastor. I went from prison to becoming a pastor. I went from gangs to grace. You know, I went from, trying to be reformed by the system to be transformed. And I live this every day because I know there's hope in Christ. And I just want
Wow.
everyone to experience the freedom that Jesus brings.
What a story. I want to say thank you, Pastor Ray, for telling me your story. It just
Thank
helps
you.
me understand, the grace, the love,
That's grace.
the power of God and his kingdom.
Yes.
It's without end. So do me a favor. I want you to look right at this camera, and I just want you to make a plea or say a prayer to the one that you know is hurting, that's watching, that as they hear your story, that their life would be radically changed. Take a moment to speak to the camera.
Amen. Well, you got so many here. I don't know
That
which
one
one
right
to
there,
look
right
at.
there.
Hey, God bless you, man. My name is Pastor Ray, but I always wasn't a pastor. I was an inmate. I was a no good person, but Jesus came into my life, changed my identity, changed my name. And if he did it for me, he can do it for you as well. I know you're tired. I was tired. I know you're hurting. I was hurting, but Christ is the answer to it all. He will fill you up in all those void areas of your life. And I'll tell you what my spiritual dad told me, don't knock it until you try it. Jesus changed my entire life, and I'm free today. I don't look over my shoulder. I don't worry. I don't have fear. My future is secure in him, and he wants to secure yours as well. This life is not the end for us. This is only a stepping stone until the afterlife, eternal salvation. But the Bible says you got to believe it. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Right? Romans Road tells us in Romans 10:9 and 10, that whoever confesses with their mouth that Jesus is Lord, believes in their heart that he died on the cross and rose on the third day, you shall be saved. And so I want to encourage you, just say that prayer, accept him in your life. That's what I did. That's why God transformed me into a new creation. I'm a new creature, something that's never been seen before. And that's the power of Jesus. You won't find it in drugs. You won't find it in alcohol. I tried it, and I was still more empty than ever before. But today I don't get high. I get high on the Most High. I get high with Christ because he elevates us. He takes us from where we were, and we soar on wings like eagles. And so if you can hear me, I just want you to accept it, confess it, and then start walking in the new man, the new creation that Christ has called you to be. And you will not be sorry, my friend. I can guarantee that. You see this smile? This smile right here, no braces. People ask me all the time, no braces. This is a gift from God. He gives us joy. And I want to encourage you that the joy of the Lord is your strength. So thank you guys. God bless you guys. And I really, really encourage you, pick up your cross, follow him.
Well, once again, Pastor Ray, thank you for telling me your story.
Thank you.
I pray that every single one of you that hears this testimony would find hope, a future, and know that your promise is secure.
Yes.
Thanks for logging in.